This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
Conversations that matter.
Hello, everyone, and greetings. My name is Melvi Tamayo from Visalia, California, and once again, welcome to Chatline. For those of you who are tuning in with us this evening, stay tuned because we have a wonderful topic that we will be discussing today. And of course, I'm not alone. You will meet some of my friends who are going to be with me today to discuss this topic. And we're going to be talking about, does age matter? Now, you might be wondering, in what sense or in what aspect? So first, we will cover 1, the relationship part of it. Number 2, education. And third, it will be, is it worth it switching careers when it comes to age? And today I'm going to go ahead and ask one of my friends here, do you guys think age matters when it comes to relationships? Arnie or
Okay, let me start. Let me start.
Go ahead, Arnie.
Because my thing is, I think sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. I think it just depends on what age in life you're at. So I had a relationship in the past where the gentleman was much younger, and I just felt like I was
younger?
the mom.
How much younger are we talking about?
13 possibly, but it was more of like, I had to make all the decisions. I did all the shopping, like I did everything, and he was just pretty much coming along, kind of a thing. But I think if I was a little bit older and then had that difference, I think it would have made a difference. But I think because I was younger back then and he was also much younger, then, yeah.
So in that sense, you're saying that there is, or it can be challenging when there's that much of an age gap, right? Especially
yeah, like depending. So I think like if I was in my, let's say 30s and they were much younger, yes. But I think like now in the 50s and then they're going to be younger, I don't think it would be as challenging as earlier in the years.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one because there is an important part in one's life where experiences do matter. And when we're so much younger, and like you, Arnie, I too experienced dating someone younger, but he was about 5 years younger than me. And then I had another one that was 3. And depending on where you're at in life, of course, it matters when it comes to, let's say, again, experiences, your career choices, the kind of life we live in. And there are some other factors that play in being able to also bridge in the gap when it comes to working relationships. Because, as we all know, and we're aware of this, that relationships and marriage take a lot of work. So we can only imagine that
but
other than experiences and age gap, there are other factors that we also need to consider, right?
Yeah,
go ahead.
And I do have friends actually who I have friends who actually got married and they do have an age gap of like, between 13 and 15 years. And it works out wonderfully and they're happy and everything's great. So I think it just depends on the time in your life when this is all happening.
How about you, Tony? Have you ever experienced falling in love or maybe getting to know someone and being interested in someone older or younger than you are?
That is always the question, right? As Stefan put there in the live chat. I just want to mention those who are tuning in with us. They are saying that age is just a number. So, of course, we encourage that you are of a certain age when you do start pursuing relationships, right? Especially as an adult. I feel like that's when you are more in your senses of who you are and the things that you want to pursue in life, like maybe career wise, or you have your bearings a little bit more as opposed to trying to do it when you just turned like 19 or 20. I feel like when I started, being interested, like, oh, like so and so, you start getting to know someone, you start talking, and then I feel like you start to discover things about yourself as you get to know a person, right? And what's happened for me is that I've started to discover what I like and what I don't like. And I think in terms of age, um, now that I'm older, I feel like a lot of it is more about preference, specifically, the kind of person that you get along with too, compatibility. I think speaking to compatibility and how you get to talk to each other, the level of maturity that you're both at. Excuse me, I see Nathan put that in the live chat. He said maturity matters more. So it's something that I feel like you kind of feel out as you're getting to know someone, right? As you're getting to know them, you kind of get a more of a gauge. Now they could be putting up a front, right? Like when they first meet you. So you have to be careful, right? You always have to be careful whenever you are getting to know someone and having those conversations before you get into relationship. But for whatever your preference is, my preference is going to be different than your preference, Melby, versus
Of
Artie's
course.
preference. I feel like everyone has their numbers, right? Like my max is like how many years? I feel like for me, and I want to watch me regret saying this. My max for me is like 2 years younger. That's a preference, right? That's a preference. Like we never know, who we get to know in that sense. But I do agree with what Nathan put there, maturity. I feel like someone who can be at that same level as you matters, especially like what you mentioned before in terms of the kind of lifestyle that you're at in that moment. That will be a, a big factor that will affect how you even make the relationship work, because one of you might be going to school still in college and pursuing further education while the other is doing a full-time job already. And so those are things like what you said. There are different factors to kind of consider there. So it seems like the general consensus so far is that, of course, within, you know, appropriate, things, age doesn't matter, especially when you're older. I think that's what Jeff put there in the live chat. You don't really feel the difference, I feel like, when like 28 versus 26 or like 30 versus 35. Thoughts, Arnie? I saw you unmute.
Yeah. So whoever on the live chat said that age is just a number, I totally agree because for me, I still feel like I'm 29, even
You
though
know,
I am not.
yes, me too. But I do agree with what Nathan also mentioned, that maturity matters a lot. And yes, age is just a number, but we can all factor in there the maturity level, because based on my personal experiences, when I was 18, I gave an opportunity with someone who was 6 years older than I was. And of course, at that age, I all I wanted to do was just have fun. I wanted to spend more time with my friends. I wanted to do my own thing. And it's that level, again, of maturity that sort of became our, I guess you can say, problem or challenges towards the relationship along the process, because he was at a point in his life where he's already kind of making plans about future and getting settled down and knowing what he wants, and here I am still trying to figure out what path I'm going to take. So that was, well, in the end it didn't work out. Because even if you love each other, you care about each other, sometimes, yes, even though age is just a number, I wasn't at that level where he was serious about a lot of things, and I was still discovering myself. I still wanted to do many more things and learn things, and further my education and all that stuff. So it became a barrier, and in the end, or in the long run, it just didn't work out. And plus we ended up also separating ways, thousands and thousands of miles away. So long distance didn't cut out for us either. So it just wasn't meant to be.
Arnie.
And Tony, I agree with you. When I was younger, I did have like the whole age preference thing where, okay, they cannot be more than like, 2 years, 3 years, or less than 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, that goes out the window.
Can I also add though, just by the way, it's not just necessarily what you are, the age that you're looking for in like your boyfriend or girlfriend, but um the time that you actually start dating too. I feel like there's such a stigma sometimes when um maybe you're growing up, maybe they're the younger ones who are watching, like they see their friends in college, they're like, oh, they have a boyfriend now, they have a girlfriend now, and you feel like, oh, I don't have one yet, and you kind of, you get those feelings of, I guess, FOMO, for for lack of a better, like you feel like you're missing out. But it's like, that's okay though, like you don't have to, like, just because that's the thing, like don't feel the pressure that because you're this age now you have to be able to find someone, right? And I feel like that leads to a lot of grief sometimes, because they feel like they have to meet someone, like, oh, like I'll talk to this person and maybe they can be. And you don't want to force something just because you think that at this point you have to be in a relationship, or you have to be married already. Like I know people who got married in their 40s, like who got married in their 50s, like later on in life. And it's like, I go back to preferences, because depending on what your lifestyle is and depending on what you're trying to pursue for you personally, it's like um there's imaginary I feel like sometimes there's imaginary like lines in our head, or imaginary like checkpoints, like, oh, by 30 I need to have a house, I need to I need to be married, and I need to have like 3 kids. And it's like, that might be somebody's story, but that doesn't have to be your story. So not only thinking about whether age matters in terms of who your potential spouse will be, but also whether or not age matters in the time that you decide to start dating. That's going to be entirely up to you, especially like if you're very career focused, and you let's say you're an entrepreneur, Melvi, and your goal is to build up this whole thing, and that requires a lot of time. Sometimes, whether you are able to focus on that versus also investing in relationship, that can that's something that you'll have to kind of weigh out. So for those who are listening, even in terms of relationships, it's not just about um, the age of your potential significant other, but also when you start. That's also that also doesn't matter too. It's always going to be up to you. So don't feel the pressure from society or other people asking you, like, because I experience it all the time. So why don't you have a boyfriend yet? Because I don't want to. Of course, I say it more respectfully, but in my mind, it's just like, because I don't want to, and that's okay, right? That's okay, because it's always
you
going to
know,
be.
I'm I'm glad you brought that up, Tony, because I remember growing up, that was a pressure that we got a lot.
Mhm.
Was, yeah, why aren't you married yet? Why are you still single? And now I'm like, I'm enjoying it. I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have to ask anyone for permission. I'm pretty much free to do what I want. But I remember back then, it was like a big deal that you weren't married by a certain age.
And funny you say that, Arnie, because my parents were so strict with us, right? And then, so we all fell, my sisters and I fell in love at an early age, and they did their best not to have that in our lives yet, because they wanted us to focus on education and everything else in life, and the list goes on. And my two sisters got married, except for me. And so now they're anxiously waiting, and they're getting so worried. And like you, Tony, I tell them, if and when it happens, it will happen. I am not worried. I'm not going to stress out about it. I will just
Exactly.
trust the process, because you can't force it. I mean, like the example you gave earlier, if let's say we do have a lot of responsibilities on our plate, we have to find someone who would be willing to be by your side to support you and also inspire you to continue on doing what you're doing and not be a hindrance or somebody who's going to say, no, I should be more important than that. And the list goes on. And so then, you're laying out your expectations too much to a point that in the end, it's never going to work out. But if two people, no matter how old they are, of course, granted that they're both mature to deal with the process and be able to work things out, I'm a believer that if two people are very willing to share a life together, no matter what the challenges are, no matter what the circumstances are, in the end, it's going to work out in the end, as long as you're both willing to work things out. Now, my next question to both of you is, at what point does the age become too large? Let's say we're already talking about maturity in age.
Hmm. I can I just can I just mention Jeff's comment as I think on your question, because Jeff's comment made me laugh. He said it's pretty well known that men mature much slower than women. I don't want to generalize, but that's an interesting insight, Jeff. Um, yeah. Okay. Anyway, so your question, Melfi,
I
is
agree
when's
with Jeff.
much? Yeah, you agree, Arnie?
Totally.
There you go, Jeff. Thank you for your comment.
But
And we all
I'm just
agree.
glad a guy said it. I'm just glad a guy said it and not me, because it would look bad if we're the ones who say guys don't mature.
Gotcha. Um,
So, so do you
uh,
think it's possible that even if there is an age gap, that relationship would pan out, that it would be actually at some point be successful and that a couple would last, even though they have that age gap?
I think you said it earlier, Melvi, is
Did I
willingness,
really?
right?
Oh, yes,
You
yes, of
did.
course I did.
Well,
Yeah, I
well,
did.
no, I mean,
No, Reggie
no,
said
I mean,
answer that question. Thanks for reminding me.
no, I mean, as honestly, I have nothing else to add in that sense, because it's true, right? You have to show up with a certain willingness, because if you're in different points in life, right? Like, let's say your age gap is of 10 years, and the examples that I gave earlier, one of you is already like set in your career, like you're already good, and then the other one is maybe still like trying to finish school. Maybe they're in medical school, and it's something that's going to be taking them a long time. Like, that willingness to be able to accept, like, okay, this is something that you're passionate about, that is separate from who I am. So I need to be able to respect that if I'm going to continue on with this relationship with you, especially when you are in a relationship with someone, you already see that you will have a potential future with them. That's the reason why you're in a relationship in the first place, right? So
Yes.
that's already kind of like the beginning of being able to navigate and work through things together and being accepting of that stuff. So I like that word willingness that you said, Melvi, because I think that's true for any relationship, especially when you're starting out. I can't speak on the married aspect because I'm not married, but like being in relationships, that's ultimately going to be the make or break it, because if that person stops being willing to go through that process with you, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you kind of have to own it, like, in that moment. And sometimes it may not be that person, because maybe that's it's not working out compatibility. It's not even about age at that point. It's just like what you said, it's preferences, and then willingness. I like that word. Yeah.
Yeah, when the heart beats, it beats, right? Sometimes it's hard to
Wow.
stop it. You try to think of all the reasons why you cannot be with that one person, but then there's just this one reason that just keeps you from going in that
Wow.
direction.
If the heart beats, it beats. We need to put
I
that
mean,
in,
love
like,
has no boundaries,
neon.
right? That's what we're talking about. Does it really matter? I mean, like what I've also mentioned, if you're willing to work it out, you want to give an opportunity. And I think with this, does age matter in all aspects? Is for myself, we need to understand that as long as we have an opportunity, we're given an opportunity to do what we would like to do in life and be able to also experience being fulfilled in all aspects, then we have to try it. And the only way we're going to know the answer is if we dive into it, of course, knowing that we're ready to face also the consequences, whether if it's a positive outcome or a negative outcome. Do you guys have anything else to add when it comes to this? Because otherwise, we're going to move on to the next discussion.
I just want to reiterate that line one more time. When the heart beats, it beats. People are going to remember that after today's
Yes, it does. I mean, have you ever felt Twitter-pated with someone? I have. I don't know about you, but
No, sorry, can't relate.
One day, let me know when you do. Okay. How about you, Arnie? Oh, hold on. I did
That's
remember
true.
something.
I do agree. I do agree with what you say. Because like you said, you have your preferences, but sometimes all of a sudden, your heart just starts thumping and we're like, okay, I guess there goes that preference out the window.
But also priorities too. I think priorities and values is also something that helps with all of those things. Willingness, priorities, values, yeah, all that stuff, good stuff goes together. I just want to add that.
Somebody already made a hashtag. Jeff, he said hashtag when the heart beats, it beats. Thank you. It's like a melody. It's like a favorite song. Once you hear that song and it sticks in your head, it's over. Then you start memorizing the lyrics and you start humming to yourself, and you're playing it over and over again because it's inspirational, right? And so, setting aside the discussion, I do have a short story to tell. My aunt, by the way, is 10 years older than my uncle. Guess when my uncle found out that she was actually 10 years older? During their wedding. My aunt never disclosed how old she was until they got married. And my uncle was like, "Well, I love her." And when I found out, I was kind of shocked, but at the same time, I couldn't leave anymore because I mean, it was the wedding day. You just don't ditch someone, especially inside the church, right? So I said, "Wow, that's a beautiful story. How did she get away with it?" And he said, "I never asked." And she never said anything. So I said, "So you dated her for a while, but you never asked how old she was?" And he said, "No." But they're both happily married and
Well,
they have two
Melvi,
girls. Yes.
don't you know, Melvi, it is wrong to ask a woman how old she is. Don't you know that is forbidden?
I don't
So
know
if you
anything
want to,
embarrassed about my age.
if a guy wants to ask, then he has to be sly about it and either look on social media, look at their driver's license, look at something, but they should never ask how old a girl is.
Oh, well,
It probably didn't matter that much.
Yeah.
It probably didn't matter that
It
much. I
didn't.
think that was the point for.
Yeah, because he said she was mature, but at the same time they get along so well, and like I said, he said my heart was with her, and she took my heart away and breath away, and that was it. It was over. I said, well, it's a good thing that it worked out in the end. So yes, it can last, regardless. So, okay, setting that aside, now that we've discussed that age does not matter and that there's always a possibility when it comes to love, true love, whether if it's age gap or no gap, preferences or no preferences, when it happens, it'll happen. And hopefully that we continue to do our best to make it work with our significant others, whether if it's dating or in marriage. Now, when it comes to education, though, do you guys think that at any given point in life, that it's okay to continue to pursue education no matter how old we are? What do you guys think,
So
Tony?
this one, I think I think it doesn't matter either because my cousin's grandpa, he actually got married young, had kids and everything, and so he had to take care of his family. When the kids were finally grown and he was, he had nothing left to do, he went back to school. He got his college degree in his 70s.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and he was the oldest person in his graduating class, and everybody was very supportive of him. And we were just shocked. I mean, we didn't know he went back to school until it was graduation time, because he would say he would just go out. We thought he was going to the library because he enjoyed the library. But yeah, he went back to school and he got his degree at 70 something.
How about you, Tony? What do you think? I that's wonderful. I think it's, it's however you want to make your life work. Doesn't matter what you want to achieve. I think age shouldn't be a factor. What do you think, Tony?
This one definitely hits home for me just because I I took some college, but I haven't formally like gotten a degree yet. So for me, there's always been that thing in my mind that kind of, it feels like a stigma, like, oh, if I go back now, like, does that make me does that make me like look bad? Does that make me look like I didn't do well, or things? And the reality of the reason why it ended up that way is because of financial things that happen. So um, what I will say is that it becomes more challenging, I think, when you get older for different reasons. Like, it could be your capacity in the sense of being able to remember, being able to remember stuff, or just that idea of being back in a classroom and getting acclimated to that environment again and keeping up, especially as education evolves. Because I feel like the stuff that um, they've been doing in terms of like the way that they teach math, for example, it's very different than when I was in school. So those are kind of things that you kind of have to consider when you do go back. But just like to Arnie's point, there are people who have done it, and I think it goes back to that word again of willingness, right? Like, the age is kind of like your marker. Like, okay, you're gonna be 30 when you go back for a college degree, and you might think of that in your mind as like a limitation because, well, I'm a 30, or well, I'm 40, like, and you might tell yourself like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this anymore, if I can keep up, especially when you see your other classmates and they're all younger than you. But it's about willingness, so whether or not you're gonna put in the work, as opposed to your age. That your age will not dictate how well you succeed. It may play a factor in what makes it more challenging for you, but it's
So
going to
I
be up
want to
to
add
you.
on.
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Arnie.
want to add on to what you're just saying. For those who are apprehensive about going back to school, I took a few years off after high school before I went to college. And so I was already in my 20s when I actually started college. And for me, I actually think it was much better because I was more mature. So I did take school more seriously. And it gave me the chance to realize this is what I wanted for myself. It wasn't because my parents were expecting me to go to college, but because this is what I wanted to do. And so I think, going to college at later in life actually helps because you're more focused and you're able to understand the importance of actually doing it rather than just doing it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with both of you in that aspect because when I was still in school, and it took me many years to get to where I am now or to what I have, it wasn't easy. And like you, Tony, I also did experience financial challenges. And therefore, I had to stop and then work full time and then go back to school and then work. And then there were times where I was doing both. I was working full time, I was going to school full time, and it wasn't easy. It was very hard. I barely made it, but it's worth it. And I have had classmates also in the past who were much older and much younger than I was. And it's so nice to see when people are so driven to actually achieve something and they want to pursue something because they want to improve their quality of life, or they just want to dream bigger, and so they put in the effort. And I've had one where she became grandparents of, I believe, 20 grandchildren, and that was amazing. And she said, I wanted to be a role model for them, that age does not define who you are in terms of education, and that as long, again, the willingness. As long as you're determined and willing to do what it takes to get to from point A to point B, you shouldn't let anyone or any factor get in the way. It doesn't matter how old we are, right? And so, yes, I do certainly agree that education is basically open to anybody as long as you would want to do it. Now, not just education, but also learning different skills or learning other things. Because I know some people stop learning. They don't want to grow anymore. They're stuck. They choose to be stuck. Why? Because their excuse is, I'm already old. I don't want to do that anymore. Or I'm content with what I have. But the thing with that is when you're so consumed by your present self and present mindset that you're not giving your future self a chance to actually see how far you can get in life and be able to also see what you can accomplish and see if you can actually do it. I mean, it's okay to fail every now and then because consider failures as challenges. Again, I've reframed also my mindset when it comes to failures because I have failed in so many ways in the past. And when I look back, I said, wow, those were the things that I've done, but I'm going to go ahead and move forward and just dump that and leave it and not look back. Instead, learn from it and then reframe my mindset to where, okay, as long as I continue day by day to do what I need to do in my life and continue to work hard, I know it's going to get me somewhere, even if sometimes it doesn't work out. Or let's say we fail, but at least we gave it a chance and we won't live in regret.
I want to add something to that. For me, I've changed my mindset where there is no such thing as failure. I have never failed, is what I've decided. And for mine is more of opportunity for growth. Okay. So you didn't meet, the standards you were looking for. I don't see that as a failure. I see that as an opportunity for growth. And I think if you see it that way, then it makes you realize, hey, I could do anything because guess what? I'm growing. I'm not
Yes,
failing.
agree. I will borrow that and stick it in the back. Stick it
Jeff
in my
actually
memory.
put a nice comment in the live chat. He said, "Fail, forward attempt in living." Forward
Ooh,
attempt in
that's
living. So
nice.
that's a good
Yes.
reminder.
Yeah.
But can I also add though, Melvi and Arnie? I just want to expand a little bit on what Nathan said. He said, when you're older, you may not have the luxury to dedicate a lot of time to education. So I do want to speak on the other end of those who may be listening that do have that what's the right word for it, that those who are listening who do have the opportunity, maybe that their parents or the ones who are taking care of them, like I know a lot of my friends, their grandparents were like ready to just pay for their whole like college education, or their parents are just they're just able to do that. If your parents are able to do that, um take that opportunity. Like if you have the opportunity, like take it. Like don't let it go to waste. And it may feel pressuring sometimes to feel like you have to finish a degree by a certain time, and maybe you may be in the boat of switching majors because that does often happen and you're trying to figure stuff out. But if you have the opportunity, do take it. Like life happens, and sometimes you may not finish it the way that you wanted to, or you may not end up with the college degree that you thought you were going to. But it's always good to try first, especially if you have the opportunity. I don't want to say that it's a luxury necessarily, because it does take a lot of work to even have that. Like the parents work really really hard to be able to provide that future for their children, and even like grandparents. So um take that opportunity, and that's something that I as someone who hasn't achieved it yet, that's something that I wish I took more of a chance on when I had the opportunity, as opposed to when I didn't anymore, if that makes sense. Yeah.
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 'Cause-
And
yeah.
and the other thing that I want to say is when you do go back to school when you're older, there's a lot of opportunities there, because I remember when I first wanted to go to college right out of high school, it had to be my parents to pay for my college because I wasn't, I got scholarships here and there, but it wasn't enough. But then when I decided to go back to school later in life, I got so many grants and so many scholarships that I literally did not have to pay for college. The only thing I actually had to pay for was where I was going to live, and that's it.
Yeah,
Wow.
amazing. Yeah, that's Arnie for us.
I know. I know. But seriously, like if the opportunity, especially for those, I know there are those who, um, when they do, maybe they're doing high school and they get like scholarships. Like there's so many opportunities for that, even when you're not in high school anymore. Like you can look for like stuff like that all the time. The opportunity is always out there. So just look for stuff. Like don't use your age as a reason to not. Because I did that for the longest time. I was like, no, I can't because I'm already past that point. And it's like, who sa- says who? Says who? Like who is telling you? And I hear that from my friends all the time. Just like who is telling you these things that you're telling yourself? Just like it's made up. Just go do it because you're never gonna know if you don't try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you may
Yeah.
fail, as Arnie said, or not fail, as Arnie said. She never fails. It's those attempts where you will get to learn, more, and that's what we always want to do. Because if we don't try, if we don't try because we think that the age is the limiting factor, then you won't be able to grow in anything. I love what you said earlier, Melby, that people use that often as an excuse to not do something. It's like, well, did you try? Did you
Yeah.
try? Like you have to try first before you can even shut down the idea. And that's
Yep.
that's the thing that will get to you in losing opportunities, because you're just like, well, what's the point? Because I'm already XYZ. I'm already like 50 something. So what? So what if people will, because I think that's what we're afraid of, right? We're afraid of the judgment, or we're afraid of how we're gonna look to other people. And it's like, well, if that's something that you really want, then why not? If that's something that's going to help you, that's going to enrich your life as an individual, then go. Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't be easily swayed by others, especially the society or what social media is exposing, because each of our lives are all different and special in their own way. You want to make or build that path for yourself, you have to do it. No one else is going to do that for you. We have choices, and it's all about attitude. Whether you want to do it today, tomorrow, you get to decide that. But the thing is not just education. Let's say you don't want to go back to school, but you like to learn, you want to acquire other kind of knowledge, for example, then by all means use the tools that are, or the tools and resources out there that are available to you, whether if it's for education or acquiring new skills. They're all available out there, but nobody's going to hand it to you and say, here you go. Sometimes we have to do it by ourselves. We have to learn, look for those, make time to actually, like what Arnie said, learn and grow, because nobody else is going to do that for us. We have to make that choice. And at the end of the day, no matter what the outcome is, we still have to continue on looking at the bright side of things. Because if you won't try, you'll never know the outcome. And I know that I've mentioned this before, that unfortunately what scares us the most is when we don't know the result. We're already afraid before we even make that step. We're already assuming before we can even make the move. Why? Because maybe so and so says it, or a friend of ours said this, or maybe we see other people fail, and therefore we just don't want to take action because we're afraid of failing, or we're afraid that it's not going to work out. Whether if it's a relationship or education, we won't know unless we try. So that's some of the keywords that we'd like for you to continue to ponder upon as we're given an opportunity to wake up each day and still be grateful that we have something, no matter where life will take us, and that we have to continue to trust the process, because of course we're never alone in this, whether we have our family and friends, or a church, or our faith and hope, and our love for even ourselves. Those are all important factors that we also need to remember, that we consider, that we're so fortunate to be able to be given a chance to continue to progress in life and be able to also share it with others. Just like me being fortunate to have this discussion with my friends and with all of you listeners and viewers out there. And I know the chatting is also flooding right now. And I think one of the comments here, let me just read it from, where is it? From Pauline.
Actually, the one that I really like, Melvi, is over there from Jeff. He he mentioned TRY, test
Oh,
reality yourself.
he's the acronym person for
Test
for
reality yourself.
tonight.
Yeah.
TRY, test reality yourself. Yes, I always do myself as a trial and error and what I want to do and pursue. And if it didn't work out, then I know it's not meant for me. So yes, thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. And then Nathan also said he wants to work on vehicles or building a podcast studio. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Don't forget about us when you do.
Mm.
Wait a minute. He's supposed to be here. Nate, where are you at? I'm just kidding. So, other
Nate,
than,
Nate's
oh, Nate,
driving.
oh, he's driving. Okay. Well,
I
be
said
safe out
Nate's driving. Nate has a lot of projects he wants to work on, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, I cannot even keep up. He just wants to do so much. So we'll see what we can accomplish.
there. Yeah. And that means he's having his brain continuously active because he's always on the go and working on things or tinkering on things and learning stuff as, life progresses. So, the next aspect that we're going to talk about, because I know that we only have a few minutes left before this show ends, is let's say you already have a career. You're set with your goals, you're working full time jobs, maybe you're even looking into close to retiring. Now, would you be willing to switch careers if in case you're not happy or content with what you have right now? What if you wake up one day and say, I think I'm meant to do something else? Would you be willing to switch? Doesn't matter how old you are. Would you be willing? The word willing is there. Arnie, Tony, I think Arnie shared with us that she did, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, she'll be.
Yes, she.
Oh, there she
Yeah,
is.
I just struggling a bit. I think. Yep. I think she's. Is she good?
Are you
Yeah.
good,
No
Arnie?
Hello,
thoughts.
Arnie,
sorry.
would you be willing to share
You
your
know,
story? Because I think you did.
yes.
Did you
So first of
switch
all,
career?
I did. I did. I apologize because I'm in Bangkok right now, and internet here is not that great and service. So I think I keep cutting out. But I did. I actually had a job in public relations and in marketing that I totally loved. So it wasn't because I didn't love the job. I loved the job. It was great. One of the downsides, I guess, was the whole 24-hour thing where you're literally on call for 24 hours because if anything happens, you have to put out fires. And so that was one of the things. But I loved my job, don't get me wrong. And but I was a registered companion for my uncle who worked for the airlines at the time. And he says, okay, well, I got to take you off and I got to put somebody else. And I'm like, no, I go, I've been enjoying this traveling, being able to go anywhere. And so he says, well, the airlines is hiring. And I'm like, wait, I'm going to go from a career to go work at the airport. Like, am I really going to do that? And I had to think about it for a while. And after a while, I said, you know what? Let me just give it a try. If I don't like it, I can always go back to getting a career. And I think it's one of the best moves I've made. People make fun of me. They're like, you have a college degree and you're going to work for the airport. And I because when else can I just like right after work decide to get on a plane and go anywhere I want to in the world? And so there's different things you have to consider. I did take a big pay cut, which I'm okay with because at least now with my job, it's not 24/7. It's I go to work when I'm done with work, I'm completely done. I don't take it home. And so it was something I really, really had to think about. But when I made the decision, I stuck with it. And right now, I think it was a great decision because, I'm not stressed.
So you're saying you're happier. You're a lot happier now and content.
I am when it comes to work because I do enjoy what I do. I enjoy the benefits of being able to travel wherever I want to, whenever I want to. I just had to learn how to downgrade my lifestyle and not be able to just go and spend money freely like I used to.
I know there's always that pros and cons, isn't it? What would you be willing to sacrifice for something make you more satisfied in life? Tony, do you have anything to say? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that's just very real. I can't relate just because I'm still very early on in my career. I'm literally just just starting in
How
terms of
about in
where
your
I'm
jobs, for example, your past experiences, or have you already worked at a job where you've been there for quite some time?
at. Yes and no, and what I will say is I just want to speak to what Arnie mentioned, where you have to think about what your trade-offs are. Because, and I want to be careful in saying this because all of us here in the hangout are not married, and I personally don't have kids, so the decision that I would make in terms of whether or not to switch a career, it wouldn't affect much others aside from myself. Now when you think about it in terms of if you're at a different stage in life, you may consider those different things, right? Your family, and I won't speak on that as an expert because again, I'm not at that at stage in life. But those are just things to consider, right? And so, whether or not age matters, it doesn't, right? It doesn't because you always have that. There's always choices. There are always choices, but to be reminded that in our choices there are always going to be trade-offs, like what Arnie said. There's going to be things that you have to think about, like, oh yeah, I might have to take from this lifestyle and adjust a little bit more. Maybe I won't get, coffee at this place like every day like I used to, or this type of clothing I won't buy it all the time like I used to. There's going to be things like that you'll have to adjust, or you might be thinking like, oh, my benefits and my retirement plan, it's I'm going to have to give that up for like this other thing. And it's like, well, if you're thinking long term, because you might be at that point where you're about ready to retire and you're just like, do I really want to give up all that stuff? Or but then you're thinking about, like what you said, what is your contentment like? How is it is it compromising other aspects of your life that are important to you, things that you're prioritizing? Like for example, is if you really value being able to show up to different events in your the ones that you love, like their life, but like you're like Arnie, where you're working at a corporate job that demands so much of your time that you even have to bring it home, like not, and you're working basically all the time. It's like you weigh your pros and cons. At that point, it's not really a matter of age. It's just, well, what's important to you? What are your priorities? Because with age, it's like when you're older, you do have to consider that too, right? Switching jobs is something else. Like, are you going to be capable to switch to that other job that you're planning to switch? Like how old are you when you're doing the switch? Will you be capable to do that job? So that's stuff to consider, right? I'm just advocating for that other side of thinking before you make that decision. There are a lot of things to consider, but in terms of age, I guess the things to think about is like, are you going to be capable physically for that job? Like, are you going to be a like a I don't know, something like a construction worker like at 70? You could if you're maybe like fit, if you're allowed to, I guess. I don't know that I know anybody that's switched, in that terms, but some people would, they might be happier doing like the manual labor versus sitting at a computer desk. It's, you have to weigh those things. You have to weigh, again, what's your priorities, what's important to you. So yeah, I feel like for me, if down the line I feel like I'm not satisfied anymore with the career that I'm in, I feel like I would be comfortable, making the switch, because especially as Christians, we always believe that we'll be taken care of, right? We always believe that we'll be taken care of, like, because there's always someone who's watching over us. So we have that confidence to make the moves, and we always do our prayers for that. So, you know, but weigh your pros and cons. weigh your trade-offs. What are your trade-offs going to be?
No, that's why it's good
So
to
I
be.
agree. I agree with what you said, Tony. It's true. It is something that you really do have to think about first. And I think that was my thing, is I had the faith that whatever decisions I made, as long as it was something that was pointing me to that decision, that I wouldn't have to worry about life so much, because then I knew that I'd be taken care of. And so I think that's why it was easy for me to make that decision. Now, I must say, my oldest sister, she actually changed. She didn't change careers, but she changed for a different position. And she's married and has children. And the reason she did the move was for the family. because if she would get a different position, and she had 3 years left before she retired, if she would make that change to a different position, that would actually help her in the long run when she does retire. So even though she had to make a little bit sacrifices, with her husband and with the children, it was something that she decided because it was going to be better for them when she does retire.
Yeah. And there are a lot of, again, we have to consider the factors. We have to weigh the pros and cons, as what you both said. And that's why when you're a lot younger, you focus on something that's short term goals and then your long term goals. And then you're going to have to keep trying as long as you have that energy and determination, because once you hit, like what Tony said, that once you're old and you can barely move or can do anything, then it's too late. Now, funny that you said that, because I am actually I can resonate with this topic, because I am thinking of actually switching my career at this age, and hoping and praying that it will be something that's going to be more fulfilling, and that I'll be happier with the outcome. Again, I'm working along the process. I'm working on, everything that I need to do when it comes to that. And like what both of you said, sometimes you just have that strong feeling that's pushing you, that's making you gear towards that path, even though sometimes you're hesitating. And that's the power of, having faith. And as Christians, like you both said, we we were taught to trust the process, and that when you really really want something, you pray for it, and hopefully that one day, as you wait patiently, it'll be given to you eventually. Do you guys have anything else to add on to everything that we talked about today? I know there was so much that we covered. I don't think an hour is enough, especially when it comes to relationships, because I was looking at the chat. They were still talking about, the age gap and about love. Love is beautiful indeed. Feels good to have someone, right? But when that moment comes, embrace it, and hopefully that you'll work things out with whoever it is that you get to have that life with. Do
I
you guys
just
have
say, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship, it doesn't matter if it's education or your work. It's never too late for anything. It doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are. You just have to be content with the decision that you make, and know that if it's going to make you happier, then make the change. And don't worry about what other people think or how old you think you may be, because, like they said in the chat, age is just a number, because, like I said, I'm still 29.
I'll add to that. I'll be forever young. No age. No cap. How about you, Tony? Any last words or messages? Or if you guys have any greetings to anyone out there that you'd like to shout out or give greetings to, go ahead.
For me, I just want to add, in terms of this topic in general, like, age is just one of those things, I think, that society or other things may be used to potentially limit us. But what I like to do in terms of aspirations, or different things for my life, is to think in possibilities. Think in possibilities regardless of those limitations that you think you have in terms of age, or like what we were saying earlier, um your potential to learn, your capacity to learn. There, it's always possible. There are things that are always possible. Like, impossible is not in our is not in our vocabulary. So we do our best to just, you have to try first before you can. Don't deny yourself that opportunity to try first, for whatever it may be. um yeah, just don't limit yourself in that way. So that's it for me, Melvi.
How about you, Arnie? Any last words, last thoughts?
No, but if y'all want anything from Bangkok, let me know and I'll bring it back.
And, Nate made a comment on the chat. He said, well, some things like air traffic controller or joining the military has age limits. So if that's the direction that you're thinking of going or getting into, then yes, that one has an age limit. But everything else, whether if it's an education, relationship, or if you're not happy with your current careers right now, we hope that someday you'll find what you're looking for if you haven't yet. And remember that age indeed is just a number. Does it matter? Absolutely not. As long as we're willing to always do what we can to live each day to the fullest and be able to also care about not only ourselves, but those who we also care about and who care for us. We hope that you enjoyed this episode today, and we hope that you also learned something or resonated with what we shared with you tonight. And we hope once again that next week you will join us only here on Chatline, where we have conversation that matters. Take care, be safe out there, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Arnie. Thank you, listeners and viewers out there. Have a great weekend, everybody, and see you again next time. Bye.
Looking for more conversations that matter? INC Radio Chatline, Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific or 11 p.m. Eastern at INC Radio DZEM 954 on YouTube.